Okay, so here's the route and profile that I've plotted on Commute. The ride starts just on the south side of the Firth and ends up at Roseisle. You can see over on the left the distance about 170 miles, 6,500 feet of climbing, and my estimated time for it is about 12 hours ride time. The profile is a little bit interesting in that it looks very heavily loaded towards this back end of these two big hills, and they are big. But actually, close to the halfway point here at Pitlochry, by the time you've ridden this, what looks like the flat section of the ride, you've actually made about half of the climbing. So all the little undulations in this really stack up to be as much, if not slightly greater than these two larger humps towards the end of the ride. Commute, if you've not used it, I just prefer it to plotting on something like, say, Strava. One of the nice things about it is that it's got some nice free map overlays in terms of like cycle networks. So if I turn this on, there's an open cycle map. There are other maps you can buy for it in their premium edition, and you can see now it's added cycle routes in, and in fact the blue line here is on a cycle route. You can see here as you kind of move around, you can see these cycle routes. So it makes plotting easy on cycle friendly roads and routes, which is why I use Commute. The other thing I've looked at, because this is a one-way route, you wouldn't want to be pushing a headwind the whole way. It'd be an absolute nightmare mentally more than anything else. So I kind of plotted a window of days where I could do this, and I've just been using windy.com to look at the weather. So today on Friday it's coming down from the northeast, and since I'm coming up this way, this would not be a good day to ride it on. So I've opted for the Saturday, and you'll see on the Saturday it's very, very light winds, and they're coming from the southwest, which is going to aid me on my route, which is much preferable to pushing wind for 12 hours. In terms of my preparation for this, just some background, I did about 12,000 miles last year. Did quite a few miles, the most I've ever done. But I've actually done less since the new year, and in fact in this little block here just prior to getting into this, it's quite low. My loading is quite low, and here in the last 3 weeks I've done 4 or 5 pretty big rides of 2 or 3 hours, 4 hours, maybe even 5 hours, just to get additional loading into my legs and build some of my endurance. So where this is saying here I'm fresh in this area for the previous weeks, and I wasn't really doing an awful lot for the last few months, it looks like I've done a lot of work to bring this down into the green. And in fact, it's not been hard to do. You just have to sit on your bike and ride hours, and it doesn't have to be hard. You just need to ride slow, slow miles, and get the endurance into your legs. And I've probably done that over 5 rides. I find after about 3 hours of riding, your legs get to a point where they've kind of normalised with the effort that you need to be putting out. For none of this ride do you want to ride hard. Even on the hills, you have to be conscious of throttling back and not going particularly hard on them. You've only got so much energy you can burn throughout the ride, and there's no point in using it up all the hills and getting yourself into difficulties later on in the ride. And that just comes in terms of how fast you can take on carbohydrates as you're eating on the road, and how much you're putting out. So effectively, when you're looking at a 12-hour ride, you're riding slowly for the whole duration of it. There is no fast. You're just riding slow at a pace you can maintain for the 12 hours. And you need to start really, really slow and keep it really, really slow. And it's much slower than you think it should be. So yeah, prep. it's probably only taken 4 or 5 weeks to get that type of effort in my legs. Okay, I was, I had a reasonable amount of fitness. I'm not saying I haven't, but it's a lot of this stuff was all based on like 1 hour efforts, 1.5 hour efforts. It's a completely different type of fitness when you're going to ride for 12 hours. You don't need to be fast at anything. You just need to be able to stay on your bike and ride in your saddle for lots of hours, and doing 4, 5, 6 hour rides will kind of get you into that. So I hope that helps. Okay, this is what I'm planning to take out on the road with me. There's obviously a toolkit and tools for the road, tubes, pinch repair kit, quick link, little blinker, lock, all the normal stuff you'd probably take along yourself. Nutrition wise, mainly sugary items, bunch of gels in there, fruit and nut, and loads of jelly babies. Liquid wise, I'm taking 2 bottles, one with water, one's gonna have some high five in that, the other will take the electrolyte tablets. I'll probably take some bananas. I've got a spare top which I'll change halfway through, and that little lot will kind of just about fit into these 3 bags. I've got a top tube bag, a frame bag, and an old top peak bag that I resurrected because it's about 4 times the volume of my normal one, and I'll be able to get a little bit more in it.
As far as hydration goes, I stopped a few times and filled up the 2 water bottles, and also replaced the high five with additional powder that I took with me en route. By the end of the ride, I wasn't feeling dehydrated, but I would say that I probably didn't drink enough on the way. I took on a lot of liquids that night and the next day, and I think I was probably a little more dehydrated than I would have liked to have been, to be quite honest. After the Forth bridge crossing, there's a climb out of Dunfermline to Lochleven. Once you're out of the first part of that, you're pretty much in the countryside on small roads and cycle paths, and that's pretty much the way the route continues the whole way. There's very little traffic, and it's very well supported with the cycle networks. Once you get north of Dunkeld, you've got about a 40-mile climb then to the top of Dromocta. It's probably the hardest part of the ride, but once you've got that done, you know you've broken the back of the entire thing. The descent into Aviemore was bliss, and it had the bonus of having a pizza there waiting for me as well, so that was great. Aviemore to Car Bridge was the final climb of the day. I'd got the wind at my back now, and I'd just eaten a pizza, so I was actually still making really good progress despite having already covered 130 miles. The last 30 miles of the route was all downhill and the wind was at my back, so not surprisingly, it was actually the fastest part of the entire ride, where I'd averaged about 21 miles an hour for the last 30 miles. My overall average was about 17.6 for the entire ride. Well, if you made it this far, thanks for watching. The last part of this video, I'll just leave you with a few clips of some of the terrain that I took out on the road. It's all pretty typical for the entire ride, and there was very little traffic anywhere, to be quite honest. So 10 hours of cycling or more, and very, very few cars indeed.